right, and welcome into episode 1 of the DNVR Rapids podcast. Get those air horns going. Bam, 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 bam. Let's go. Let's go. Very hyped to have you guys in. My name is Mitchell Carroll. I am joined by Matt Pollard, Jared Giesler, and of course, super producer Yaya on the ones and twos. Man, welcome in, guys. Welcome. Whoa. Thank you, Matt. It's good to have you. I was just watching your video on I-80, watching the preview. It's good to see you in here and get some tactics and all that in. And welcome.
Yeah,
welcome.
Thank you. No, I think Mark and I on my podcast, HTHL, we declared last week that officially the Rapids are done with their preseason training games and everything. People are hitting us up for preseason stuff. Obviously, other media outlets are ramping up. So I'm ready to hereby declare the MLS offseason is over. Champions League cometh.
We're done. Let's go. We're going. Jared, welcome in.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Matt, I hope you're right. The preseason's over and preseason doesn't extend through that first match down in Guatemala because we've seen that from time to time. Not necessarily going for it, if you will. So I hope you're right and preseason is officially done and dusted.
Jared, I think from Robin Fraser's time at Toronto FC, I think it's safe to assume the Colorado Rapids will not be treating Champions League as preseason.
Let's see.
And we talked to Fraser and had a graphic up with a quote from him saying that they're taking it very seriously. They're excited. It's an important competition to him, and he's played and coached in it before, and hopefully, and we'll get into that later in the show, obviously. Not to get too into the weeds to start, mostly we're excited to get started. We're going to do this weekly. We'll have these guys on a lot. We'll have other members of the Rapids community in. To start, I think the biggest thing to start is we left off last year with kind of a bitter taste in that loss on Thanksgiving in the MLS Cup. But looking into the offseason, we managed to re-sign several key players. I would say a lot of key players. Pretty busy in terms of re-signing, actually. And Matt, I'll start with you. I would say Barrios and Mark-Anthony Kaye were critical, and we want to talk about them together, obviously impacting goal scoring and offense. And sort of how do you see them fitting in long term and also right now, and how important it was to keep them around?
Barrios was the biggest newcomer to this team this past year. 8 goals, 5 assists, if memory serves correctly. He was absolutely fantastic, dynamic, and really a catalyst between getting the team from the middle of the field into the final third, into dangerous areas. He's still not yet 30 in terms of locking up the veteran attacking components of this team. He was absolutely critical, and I would say Mark-Anthony Kaye is part of that group of that young, about to enter their prime core. I think about him. I think about Lalas Abubakar as well at the back, really critical pieces as well. And as we've seen with Mark-Anthony Kaye, typically when he's doing well for his international team, obviously, I think, one game I think Canada needs to win in their final 3 to go to the World Cup as well, to say now that the Rapids have potentially a World Cup starter on their team as well in midfield, who's proven he can be dynamic, who has embraced the hardworking revenge of the distressed assets FC component of it. Kaye's a key component to that, and one of the many now versatile tools in the Rapids midfield Swiss Army knife that Robin Fraser will have from him starting up next week.
Yeah, and Jared, where do you see him fitting in? Obviously last year, the sort of three-headed monster they had there all seemed to kind of rotate around even within a game and kind of take on different roles. Can Kaye step into that role and play those different positions within a game and fill the gaps when needed?
I really think he can. He's been fantastic in the internationals. We look forward to seeing him at World Cup. I think Canada does have that all but wrapped up. But
you would hope so.
we all, when we had Matt come in last year, we all assumed that it would be Acosta, Price, and Kaye would be dominant, maybe one of the best midfields in MLS. I don't think that ever came quite to fruition, and with the departure of Kellyn Acosta, we won't have the benefit of being able to see that trio this year, but we've got some other good pieces, and I think this allows Mark-Anthony Kaye to really step into the spotlight and be the star that we know he can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Price, and I think we can go into Price here. They do have that time together. They've played together, and locking Price up, he seems to be the heart and soul of everything they're doing right now. Matt, what do you think about locking him up?
Yeah, absolutely. He's the heartbeat of this team. The blood of this team is tattooed with Jack Price's studs on it. He's been a fantastic leader for them. I think he kind of came into the league as kind of a new one understanding Major League Soccer, and now he's kind of like I remember Steven Gerrard was doing an interview his first time at the LA Galaxy, and he was like, normally I'm the guy that has to show every single new Liverpool player around now. And I feel like, other than maybe there being a little bit of a language barrier, Max, who we'll get into a little bit later, he was at the training facility for the first time, his first training session, and I imagine a lot of it was Jack Price walking him through everything, and then one of Lucas or Andre Shinyashiki doing the translation between English and Brazilian and everything. But every single new player that comes into the Colorado Rapids, Jack Price is going to be the first one they meet, and he's going to be, here's the standards, here's what we do, match up to it, because this is what everybody else is. He is as much keep fighting and as much what this Rapids teams is as Robin Fraser. Absolutely.
And it's great to have him around. Let's kind of start moving towards the back a little bit. Danny Wilson locked up. Let's go to Jared on that one. Talk me through his impact and what you see from him this season and what it means to lock him up.
Yeah, I've been a critic for a long time, especially because of some one-on-one defending issues that I had leading up to last year. Last year, he cleaned that up. He's by far our best distributor of the ball from the center of our defense. And so being able to keep him for a couple of years and have him kind of set the defensive line is going to be important, and who he plays next to will be impacted by the fact that he is going to continue to be a dominant factor. The one-on-one defending improvement is marked, and also we're going to expect more goals in the box.
Squash Salmon!
The Scottish Seven. Get up, get in, son.
Yeah, and obviously, and we'll get into Trusty leaving here, in a few segments here, but he really does have that opportunity to cement himself as the guy in the back, and I think we'll see it. Going outside, Rosenberry locked up. Love to see that. I think he was amazing last year. Really loved having him around. Jared, talk a little bit about Rosenberry, what he means to this defense, where you see him kind of playing in, getting the ball up the field.
Yeah, talking about Rosenberry, there's very little flashy that you can say. It's not as exciting to talk about, but the guy's an absolute workhorse. He played, I think, as many minutes or more than anyone else on the team last year. We expect more of the same. Lord willing, injury-free, but he really is. He's a stalwart at right back, and definitely leaves a mark when he gets the studs stuck in for a tackle. So a guy that we really we haven't had to live without, and fortunately so, because I do think there is a bit of a drop-off between him and other right back options.
Right, yeah, Matt, this is the kind of guy like a Price that you do want in the clubhouse and on the field as a constant like that.
Absolutely. I think he's definitely in that group of, it's him, Danny Wilson. I'd put Colin Warner in that same conversation of the veteran about to turn 30. Certainly they're at their peak, about to get a little bit down, but I mean, we've seen Keegan Rosenberry. He, outside of goalkeepers, was I think the only Ironman in 2018, his first year with the Colorado Rapids. He's a little bit quieter than Price. I think he's more lead by example and then have a conversation. Wilson and Price, they've definitely got a bark to them, but I mean, he's one of those guys who comes in, does his job, is constantly consistent. I think Robin Fraser a couple years ago referred to him as consistent, unremarkable, hardworking, and those are the three pillars upon which so many of these players, Rosenberry included, are built on, and which that's really the three pillars of the success that the Rapids are able to achieve with the Rapids way, and Rosenberry is a massive part of that.
Love that. I think the other two we would want to mention probably Moore and Beta Shore. Jared, what would you have on those two re-signing?
Glad to have Betashore back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He can be a solid backup piece. He's not a guy that I think you'll see get many starts this season. But that's because we've got a guy like Rosenberry playing in front.
Right.
That really, I think Rosenberry was key to allowing Sam Vines to develop and be eventually sold on to Antwerp. And I think he's going to be key in letting our other kind of our sizzle back, who is Estevez. I think he's going to shine because we have that right side locked down. Now, if we have to go depth and we bring in Beta Shower, you've got a MLS vet, somebody you can count on, and I like that a lot better than bringing in somebody who may be a prospect from USL.
Sure. And then with Moore, Matt, with Trusty going out, with re-signing Wilson, and then you have Keita coming in, where do you see him kind of fitting in this season?
I figure the floor for Drew Moore is if just him, and I'd put Bassett in this category as well, basically being like effectively extra assistant coaches that just happen to be players on the field as well.
Nothing wrong with that.
Moore was one of the biggest mentors to Austin Trusty last year, while Austin Trusty was playing ahead of Drew Moore. Do I think Moore still has 500 minutes in him that he can fill in? We've seen him come in and sub in as well with those three center backs. Maybe in a random midweek game, there is going to be some fixture congestion if they do advance past Comunicaciones and CCL, but he's a veteran safety valve in that regard. I don't think he should play over Abubakar Keita, but if anything happens, Drew Moore coming in with the Rapids having a 1-0 lead in the final 20 minutes, I feel very safe with that.
Yes.
And I'd say the same thing about Bader at either wing as well, either outside back.
Sure. Awesome. Well, let's, that kind of wraps up, I would say, the re-signing. Let's get into the draft real quick. Nothing too big there. Mohamed Omar, obviously, after they picked him at 23rd, eventually slated to pick much earlier than that. Midfielder, played at Notre Dame, 6'3", rangy, big, feels like he can really hold down the back of that midfield. Matt, you interviewed him on draft day. What do you see him fitting in, if not immediately, maybe by the end of the season or into the future?
Yeah, he's a versatile midfielder. I think he classified himself as a number 8, but he has a lot of value he has a lot of skill sets that would make him a decent number 6. And then obviously he's really good in the air, even with that big afro at 6'3". So even at times where there were injuries to Notre Dame, in the back, he often played at center back as well. So could we see him potentially? Robin Fraser loves versatility. He loves guys who have a multitude of skills, who can play at multiple positions. They can sub in, change a couple different positions when they make another substitution as well. And I think given the fact that both he as an individual and his Notre Dame teams were hardworking, they didn't necessarily have the superior talent of a University of Virginia, for example, and the way that his season went last year, he's in the right headspace. Talking to him and learning about him as a player and him as a person, I'm like, this guy already feels like a Colorado Rapid.
Absolutely.
He does have a lot of players ahead of him in the depth chart who some of them are younger, some of them have higher potential. I do think he will probably start the season with Rapids too, but give him a 1 to 2 year project option, and I think this is definitely a player who could fill in if and when Colin Warner retires for Colorado.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think long term you'd love to see him fit in behind Price or potentially even next to, especially because Fraser does like to play 3 along the back. You figure you can kind of build the defense from those 2 in the back of the midfield.
A player comparison for you. When I see the hair and I see the size, I think Marouane Fellaini.
Fellaini!
Is this something that he could aspire to be? Kind of one of the tough guys. There's a B word I won't use that you use for players like Fellaini, but is that the type of player that we could have on our hands as he develops?
Everton's midfield needs some help right now, Jared. So if you're telling me that he's going to refuse to cut his hair, be fantastic for the Rapids, and then get sold to the Premier League in 5 years for $30 million, I am here for it.
Sign us up.
What is his number? I want his jersey.
Hey, sky's the limit.
Sign us up. I mean, it seems like, at 23rd overall, I think it was a tremendous value. I think, especially with a manager like Robin, I think it's a good fit. Culturally, I think it's a good fit on the field. Okay, let's get into upgrade, downgrade. We're going to get into who left, who's coming in. If Yaya, super producer Yaya, wants to drop in the first graphic here. So we have our guy. Oh, this is Keita and Trusty. All right. Well, yeah. So Trusty out to Arsenal in July, and then Keita in from Columbus. Obvious downgrade, as Trusty was the guy on the defense last year. But with Robin Fraser, you think Keita, if he really likes him, can get to that level. So downgrade now, potential upgrade down the road. Matt, what do you think?
Keita is a little bit of a project. I will say pretty much every single defender and every single young player under Robin Fraser has improved while they've been at the club. Keita is in an environment now in training where he's just going to be a sponge, learning so much from pretty much every single other center back, other than maybe Mike Edwards, who's just a year or two younger than him. So he fit in when there were injuries at Columbus. He didn't really cement himself when you're having to play behind behind, a guy like Jonathan Mensah, Defender of the Year caliber, two-time MLS Cup champion. That's kind of a hard MLS Cup champion, kind of a hard environment to break into. So he is a bit of a project. They've got 5-ish months in order to make that work. He doesn't need to be better necessarily than Austin Trusty. There just can't be a big drop-off once he ends up leaving for Arsenal with 14 games to go left in the season. I see this as probably, he's almost a good foil for Trusty, where Trusty came in 2020. That season, or that year for sports, was what it was. But ultimately, and he wasn't starting, he wasn't playing a lot. I would ask Robin Fraser about it. So, he's working through some stuff in training. He needs some time. Just because he's not playing doesn't mean he's not making progress. There's a lot of progress Keita can make with not making a single start through the beginning of July. And can he then pole vault himself even further in 2023? Sure. I think that's the question. I still think, given if Moore gets hurt and if Rosenberry's still playing at right back as opposed to that right center back and a back three, Jared, would we see the Rapids after Trusty leaves go back to a back four, given that Trusty's not there, or could we see them shot for another center back? Is Pork going to be cooking at the back?
It does feel that way. The 5-back system hasn't exactly worked in terms of promoting tons of goal scoring, and that's been a major problem. I don't think that we've brought in Abubakar Keita to replace Trusty 1-for-1, because I think it is an obvious downgrade as the game is as such. But I think the 4-back is a very real possibility, because when Trusty does leave, I think we are markedly weaker at center back.
Yeah, and the big question is, when do you start preparing for that on the pitch, right? When do we see a Abubakar match, pairing in the back? You want to keep, obviously, with potentially the lack of goals scored, you don't want to let Trusty not play, because you need to have the best team that you can field. At what point, Matt, do you see them really starting to look at lineups that don't feature Trusty and maybe feature Keita?
I don't know, because I think you want to pick up as many points as possible. And I mean, Jared, I think, flip a coin depending on how you feel about Danny Wilson as to who is the best. There is a very logical argument to be made that Austin Trusty is and was the best center back for the Rapids and will be this year through July 17th. So Robin Fraser loves competition. He also likes squad rotation. We'll see if injuries come up. I also think that mainly Keita has played in a back four in Columbus, so I think there's a good question of, is he better in the center? Is he better on the right? Is he better on the left? Each of those three is not necessarily the exact same as well. So there's also a potential fit there. But I think Keita will certainly have minutes to be played, but I don't know that I don't know that the closer you get to that deadline, you bench Trusty for Abubakar Keita in this one. You want to get the most out of Austin Trusty that you can.
Absolutely. Okay, next one. Okay. In. Max Alves, out. Cole Bassett. Again, this is what I'm going to say. On the surface, very clearly, we're losing the homegrown guy, a very talented player. Down the road, could Max be that guy? Jared, what do you think?
I hope that this is going to be a wash, because Bassett was a terrific player, obviously had aspirations outside of the Colorado Rapids, and guy is going to go on to do great things in Europe, and that I would imagine if Max pans out the same way, we get a couple of good years, a few goals, possibly even improving on Bassett's goal scoring record, I would say, in a year's time, then I think we've done really well with replacing Bassett in due course without spending much time waiting for that replacement.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always tough to see the homegrown guy leave. He really, to me, he seemed like a fan favorite. I know Yaya loved him some Bassett.
Bassett was literally my favorite player for the last couple of years. It was like him, Sammy Vines, and then you had Kellyn Acosta munching at the heels of Sammy Vines.
Poor Yaya, they're all gone.
I think we all love Bassett, but it's one of the cases of if you really love it, you have to let it go.
Absolutely.
And if it's meant to be, he'll come home eventually.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's not like it wasn't like we traded him against his will. Yeah. The guy wants to go and play in Europe. He's going to go play in Europe. I think that we gave him a great launch pad, and we have every reason to believe that if he were to find his way back to MLS, it would be right here to the Colorado Rapids. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's something that we can all hope for in a few years' time.
Absolutely. And Jared, now we all have a Dutch team, which I don't know that most Rapids fans have. I am waiting for the Europa League either group stage or knockout match between Royal Antwerp and Feyenoord.
Feyenoord.
So
Oh,
you would
let's
have
go.
the Rapids homegrown derby between Vines and Bassett. And I just really hope one of the comms people from one of those clubs takes a picture when they swap jerseys. Because, I mean, that's going to be my wallpaper.
Is Photog John B not going to make the trip?
I don't know that that's in his budget.
We'll have to
I don't know
find
that's a lot of miles for him to get to Amsterdam.
And Matt, you said Max finally touched down. He was in his first training today.
Correct.
He seems to play up. He will be assisting. He'll rack up some assists. He'll drift up towards the left. Where do you see him fitting in tactically? Where do you see him? Are we going to get some goals? Is he going to be more of the setup guy? Where do you see him fitting in this season?
Yeah, I think he's the most pure number 10 that the Colorado Rapids have, and I would say more so than Bassett, where I would say the way that the players and the coaching staff like to talk about it from a midfield three is it's a 6 and 2/8, and a slightly more offensive and a slightly more defensive. So if you want to think about it, it's a 6-ish 8 and then a 10-ish 8, whereas I would say Max is a pure number 8.
Absolutely.
He fits in, whereas I would say Mark Anthony K would be more of a 10-ish number 8. So I think he fits in there. I think he's also a little bit different he's different enough from Bassett and different enough from K that I think it makes it interesting. If you watch how he played in Brazil, usually when it was in transition, it was him going out wide and getting the ball and then getting into the final third or doing stuff in build-up. He's the most, I think, based on the film that we've seen, he's probably the best Rapids midfielder in terms of getting the ball with a man on and then trying to dribble through space and then creating that space and doing something with it. I guess if the question is, do I think he's scoring more goals than more assists? I think we'll have more assists than goals. I think he will score more than Cole Bassett.
Sure.
If nothing else, I just want him to not lead the league in post-hit like Bassett did last year, and immediately that's an upgrade. And then if Bassett ends up doing really, really well for Feyenoord, we already know there was a loan fee for Feyenoord taking him for the second half of the European season and next European season, so through the summer of 2023, then you're talking about $1 million for Max Alves, certainly more than that between the loan fee and then the buy to option. You're talking about like for like, potentially a slightly better long-term project in Max and making money as well. Yeah. That is Padraig Smith cooking some awesome Brazilian food.
And our guy Juan in the chat brought it up. You don't often see them shell out money like that. And $1 million is a lot to pay to bring a guy in who wasn't playing in a major league. He was playing down in Flamengo in Brazil. And so, Jared, I mean, that shows a lot of trust in their scouting, and I think it shows a lot of trust that he'll fit in seamlessly into the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke with Chris Zitterbart a couple weeks ago. We'll be featuring that interview on Holding the High Line, and
listen to Holding the High Line.
Yeah, the amount of work that they put into building out that network and really scouting it, and they've done so much work from an analytics standpoint, and they were so careful, given how detailed this club has been in scouting players from Central and South America. Michael Barrios, albeit coming from within MLS, so he's a known quantity. Sure. Lucas Estevez, Brian Galvan, who we'll get to, had been fantastic for the Rapids. For them to identify that guy and say that he's worth $1 million, I have every reason to believe that Max, maybe not this year because first year in MLS, new schedule and everything, a bit of an unfamiliar environment, not knowing English as well, there might be an adjustment period, just like how there was for Galvan and there was for Estevez, but certainly second half of this year and next year, I have every reason to believe he will be successful.
Love to hear that. Love to hear that.
I did just as much research on Max's play as I did Estevez, which was the 10-minute YouTube clip of all their best plays that they've ever done in their entire life. And let me tell you,
he has some style.
I am excited.
He has some style.
There's some flash there. Now, you don't see the ones where it doesn't come off. That's the concerning thing. But that is an amazing clip.
It was better than Eunice Nomley's Eurotech highlight reel. I think we can agree, Jared.
Absolutely.
I fell asleep for a couple of nights watching Max all of his highlights. Every night, I would wake up and I'm like, oh, he was in Cordinians. Let me watch this one now.
Look, I'm a United fan. One named Brazilian. You got to love having one named Brazilian on your team. It's going to be good, almost no matter what. It's a lock.
And we have a Brazilian contingent now.
Yeah.
Now, the question that I have, Jared, is Lucas Estevez was not a part of Los Locos de los Rapids. Do we now need like the Brazilian click name that they have and everything? Are they sitting? The Rapids have a good club culture in terms of everybody having friends and everything, but does their lunch table after training need a name now?
I guess it should, but I'd have to brush up on my Portuguese to even take a stab at it.
Okay, so if Rapids Brazil on Twitter has any good nicknames they can come up with, we'd love to hear them.
All right, let's go to our last upgrade downgrade. Yeah. And this one is a tough one. It's very tough to see. Our boy Acosta, and in comes Acosta. While it is a like for like with the name, obviously not a straight up like for like with the players. Kellyn, of course, getting traded to LAFC for $1 million plus in allocation money, and Brian Acosta coming in from Dallas, which the Rapids have had a recent history of success of bringing in guys from Dallas. Jared, obviously we're going to say downgrade. God, it's a bummer. 3 downgrades. That's tough. But give us reason for hope that it could be an upgrade down the road.
Yeah, international player, MLS experience, known commodity. I think he's going to add to an already very deep squad of midfield players, and hopefully we get some productivity out of him. I don't think that you can compare very easily these two Acostas because they play a very different role. And so for me, I'm optimistic. Just hope for the best and hope we get some solid productivity.
Yeah, can he, while he may not be replacing play style exactly as Kellyn did, can Price, Acosta, Brian Acosta, and Mark Anthony Kaye sort of create that 3-headed monster in midfield that we had last year? Matt, what do you think?
I think it's absolutely possible. I think the key thing here is, again, they're different players, and I think simply comparing what Kellyn's stats were in 2021 with the Rapids to Brian Acosta, where Paxton Pomykal was hurt, Dallas wasn't finishing any of their chances. Mm-hmm. They had a completely new formation that didn't work. They sacked their manager and everything, I think is a little bit unfair. I do think it will slightly change Mark Anthony Kaye's role. It will slightly change Jack Price's role. I would actually argue that Brian Acosta is more defensive than what Jack Price is. And as we've seen when Colin Warner's been in and he's been more of the 6, that's allowed Price to be a little bit more of the regista ball distributor as well. So if Acosta can be if Brian Acosta can be a cantankerous guy like a lot of Catrachos have been in MLS into the United States men's national team, assuming their feet aren't frozen and they're not getting hypothermia, of course, then, I think it's definitely possible. But I think, again, kind of with it, they're different players, just like how Max and Bassett are different, but you also have to look at what the difference in terms of what they get off. Is Kellyn Acosta a better player in MLS right now than Brian Acosta? Absolutely.
Yes.
Does the net change of the difference between Brian and Kellyn plus whatever Padraig Smith is able to cook up in the transfer window with that $1 million, does that make the Colorado Rapids better? I want to believe that it's possible. I'm still kind of disappointed at the timing of the Kellyn Acosta trade, given the fact that contract negotiations broke down, because I think there's a very real possibility he crushes it with LAFC, he gets to the national team, they get to the World Cup and everything, he does something amazing in the World Cup, and then some European club comes calling for $3 or $4 million next January, and how much different would that have been? So it still hurts me to see that graphic and everything. But Jared, we're supporting the laundry, and Kellyn Acosta is wearing LAFC gold, black and gold, and Brian Acosta is wearing burgundy, and I still think he has the potential to be successful. It'll take some time, and he'll be different, but we still have an Acosta, and the Rapids have had success when there's an Acosta on the team.
Yeah, a little bit different, just different view of Acosta here. And, I think everyone liked Kellyn. I think we were all sad to see him go. This is a lot of people's favorite player. You see a lot of jerseys in the stands. So from that perspective, I think it hurts anybody when you see a player that's one of your favorites depart. But that's the business. It's not a long time that you're at a team, even at the best of times. So let's hope Brian Acosta can do us well.
Do we know Brian's number? Is he going to be wearing 23?
I think it would only be fair to the folks who paid for the jerseys, but I think that's going to be up to him.
Love that. We don't need any duct tape and a Sharpie over the numbers. All right. Well, so I'll say that kind of wraps up our offseason transactions, minus the glaring, obvious problem that is all over the subreddit, all over Rapids Twitter. Anytime you're talking to a Rapids fan, it comes up, and that is the question mark of the 9 spot. We missed out on the window. You wouldn't say there was any major ad or any ad, and right now it's looking like Rubio's going to be playing in that. Let's start with Matt. are you? Where's your head at with it? What's your feeling right now? Frustration? Because it's not like there won't be goal opportunities. We have a ton of midfielders that can set up those guys up top, but a complete lack of size. Where's your head at right now with it?
Am I disappointed that the Colorado Rapids did not sign a designated player to put our hopes on to get a double-digit goal scorer? Yes.
Yes.
Is Diego Rubio still a very viable striker in Major League Soccer who can score goals and does a lot of other things that Robin Fraser values that put the team in a position to win? Also, yes. Can Andre Shinyashiki also do all of those things as a substitute, out wide, or as a starter in some games? I still believe the Rookie of the Year from 2019 absolutely can. Yes. I still think I think where it's particularly troubling is there's been a bit of an arms race. I don't know about you, Jared. I prefer FOTMob in terms of the apps. And, in the month of January, it seems like 3 days didn't go by without me getting a ping of a notification of an MLS Western Conference team signing somebody, and that player was at a position that was previously a position of weakness. And the Rapids go out. They have a very good back line. They don't need to sign a center back like Austin FC. They've got three amazing center backs. They added another really good center back. And the Rapids haven't addressed their kind of one big weakness that they do have, so that's disappointing. There's still time. Sure. We'll see if they can do something in January. It's still going to be goal scoring by committee. Can Barrios give you 5? Can Lewis give you 5? Can they score a bunch on set pieces? Still absolutely, but this is a weakness, and as we saw last year in the playoffs, it was a weakness that ultimately defined their failures in the playoff spot. Sure. And there's a bunch of other teams in MLS that have addressed weaknesses and have one of those guys, and it still feels like the Rapids, outside of maybe Max, don't.
Right, and one of those teams that did invest was Cincinnati by signing away Badgie, who seemed like a perfect fit, especially playing with Acosta on the field. Jared, do you wish they re-signed Badgie? Do you wish they, signed maybe a U.S. men's national team guy, went with another MLS guy, maybe found a prospect out of Europe? Where's your head at right now?
Yeah, all the above.
Yeah, sure. Anything, please?
Sounds like an attractive menu of options that you have.
Sure.
But at this stage, with European and Mexican windows closed, we have free agents to look at, and the list is not extraordinarily long. So unless I've got a couple on my list. I've got Diego Costa. Are we going to pay Diego Costa's wages? I don't fancy it. Robert Barich, who is a known commodity, played with Chicago, out of contract right now. He's a possibility. As we work our way down, it gets less and less obvious on who those choices would be.
Jared, it's been a while since there was all the hullabaloo in early January about DC United trying to shop Ola Kamara. Is that still, and it was kind of the consensus was he's a known quantity, he can score goals, he's 32 years old. Like other Kamaras we know, can be a little bit of a hothead that's bad for locker room chemistry. Is that somebody that maybe we should revisit?
Let's just bring in both Kamaras. Let's bring in Ola Kamara. Let's bring in Kai Kamara and see which one performs best.
Let's use our GAM to pay scientists at CU Boulder to build a time machine and bring back 2018 Kai Kamara, and then we reunite him with Diego Rubio, and then they score 20 goals.
We'll go two Kamaras up top, 2 Abubakars in back.
Yes. of all the things we could do once time travel is invented, that is clearly the most productive.
I think science would agree.
Yeah, and tactically speaking, obviously we're talking team building. There was that Acosta out wide, sending it in, having a target like Badgie. What do you see them playing now? Is Rubio going to play more of a false 9? Are they going to play outside in? What do you see? Where do you see the main goal scoring coming from tactically? We'll start with Matt.
Well, I guess if I were to answer without the tactically part, Jared, I'd say the Colorado Rapids DP striker is corners. It's set pieces for them. Yeah. But if I'm saying from the run of play, we've mentioned, obviously Kellyn Acosta is no longer a part of the Rapids to play it outside back and everything. But we've seen Lucas Estevez be fantastic.
Beautiful assist so far in the preseason.
Yeah, viewers, if you haven't gone back and checked out the highlights from this past weekend when the Rapids played Houston in the Desert Showcase, Lucas Estevez dropped an absolute dime right onto the head of Diego Rubio. More of that, please.
Absolutely.
If he can extend that distance maybe another 10 yards and maybe find Barrios running into open space as well. More of that, please, as well. I think where you make up the lack of a DP striker in the aggregate is a fully healthy and goal-scoring productive Diego Rubio. We've yet to really seen that outside of when he was playing with Kai Kamara. Maybe Andre Shinyashiki makes a reprise at the striker position. Can you get 6 to 7 goals from him? Can you get 5 goals from Jonathan Lewis? And can Lucas Estevez, Danny Wilson, Jack Price in a more advanced midfielder role, can they provide more service that then leads to more opportunities and more goals? If all of that happens, I think you can make up for the lack of a DP.
Our boy Dev Machine says, use that time machine to bring back prime Kevin Doyle. What do you guys think?
I'll have to pass on that one personally.
I agree. I wasn't a big Doyle fan myself, but he would be able to head home some goals, and we have plenty of providers, so that might be a decent chance. One thing I'd just like to say is, we talk ad nauseum about DP9. We have 3 DP slots, and we're not using any of them. So maybe we could have a DP midfielder come in, maybe a DP center back that replaces Austin Trusty.
Sure.
The fact that the Rapids fans are sticking with it, we're all optimistic. We're going into a season with no discernible striker signing, no DPs. We just love to be the underdog. And so I think we go back into this season as the biggest underdog in the league.
I think the other thing that we haven't really brought up, Jared, that I'm also wondering, is this an opportunity similar to how when Bassett comes in and there were a few holes at the midfield position. It was kind of, let's just throw Bassett out there in a couple different roles. His first start for the Rapids at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, I want to say, was Decision Day 2018, and he played as a number 6. And we've also seen that with Sam Vines, where the left back position was a little bit of an issue before he came in. Are the Rapids using the first half of this season and then waiting to reevaluate in the summer window and see, let's give Darren Yappy 500 minutes. Let's give Yaya Toure 500 minutes. Can we see what the young kids can actually do? And if one of the, 18 months ago, nobody outside of FC Dallas knew who Ricardo Pepi was. Do the Rapids secretly have one of those gems, or at the very least, a 15-goal Giassi Zardes in one of those two? This would be the year to try it, given there's nobody else after Rubio and Andre.
We don't have a lot of choices. I think we're going to see them for some significant minutes, but when you're talking about 17-year-old young men, it's very difficult to stake your hopes on players that, couldn't come in and buy a beer. They, it's a bit nerve-wracking, but that might be the model. The Rapids have shown that they want to develop players. They are looking to send players on, and the only players that you can develop and send on are guys who are of the profile between 17 and 22 years old. So, let the youngsters, let them cook a little bit themselves. I don't know if we'll have much of a chance. The Yaya Toure goal from this weekend, I think, only goes in preseason, but it was a sign that he can do something for us, and I think we're going to need it.
And, obviously a big loss for the attack would be the Galvan ACL injury. Out for 9 months, could see him for perhaps a cup run towards the end of the season. That obviously probably moves Lewis into a more prominent role. What do you guys see as the sub to come in? Is it the Shinyashiki? What do you guys see as the off the bench? We need a goal. It's 1-1. We're trying to get 3 points and get out of here. Matt, I'll start with you. What do you think is going to happen there?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a lot of I don't know.
Ask me in a month when we see, is Lewis starting? Is he still a sub? I think Yappy and Toure, just because we've seen oftentimes in this league young attackers who can't fit in at the number 9 start in as the wing and then cut inside as well, as we've also seen from the Max highlights that we've seen as well. He likes to spread out wide. So do the Rapids decide to use him as a wide attacker and then have him cut inside, and then that leaves in more room? Are the Rapids better off moving a midfielder to winger and then bringing another really good midfielder, or using an MLS unproven winger in that option? I think is the calculus Robin Fraser needs a good answer to.
Right, and they have midfielders in spades. I mean, it's by far the deepest position on the team. You have so many options. Jared, I mean, where do you see this playing out? I mean, obviously there's a lot of time early with CONCACAF champions, with the MLS season starting this month. Where's your head at in terms of the attack and where they go after the Galvan injury and the sort of transfer window dust has settled?
Yeah, hopefully we kick up a little bit of dust in the transfer window, because right now it all feels very, very settled to me.
Yeah, exactly.
As it stands. But I bemoaned it all year last year. I didn't know what the focal point of the offense was. Not sure where the goals were going to come from. And based on our preseason games, yes, it was a nice cross and a 15-yard header that may or may not go in a regular season match. I see more of the same that we had last year, where we lacked a focal point. And we, as long as that's the case, and you don't see goals being scored in bunches by committee, then I think we struggle, and that's just really kind of a tough place to go into the season. But if goals by committee can work and at least kind of keep us afloat until the next window, then by all means we have a chance to be a contender as we go into the playoffs, where really everything matters.
Right. Yeah, Oh, go ahead.
Jared, as much as we are bemoaning this is still a team with, I would argue, the best 3-deep position center back in Major League Soccer. This is still the team with William Yarborough in goal, who led the league in clean sheets as well. There are plenty of opportunities against bad teams, against teams in transition in MLS, for the Rapids to win games 1-0. They don't have to win games 5-3 in order to be successful. I think maybe to a certain extent there's an opportunity for the Rapids to, get stuck in #keep fighting, dare I say, Rapids thug life with Brian Acosta, and be willing to win some of these games 1-0. And that's where goal scoring by community, where you have a bunch of guys between 5 and 8, maybe one guy at 10 and nobody at 15, can at least keep you okay, and then reevaluate things in the summer.
We've seen it happen. We've seen it happen with majority this cast of characters. So I wonder how sustainable that model is, but as long as the good times keep rolling, we'll be happy to see it.
Yeah, Jared, you said maybe they do kick up some dust. Yeah, we got a graphic here where we said these are what we want to see the Rapids go and do, and maybe bring in a striker.
First one, we have Jared.
Jared, break it down for me. Walk us through it.
Kellyn got MLS experience, has scored a ton of goals, is a guy that I believe is out of contract next season, so somebody that could be willing to be sold on.
Dipping into the Team Canada well, too,
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
bit.
Another national team player. Yeah. You've got the Mac connection. Wishful thinking more than likely, but a player that I would love to see. I think he fits the mold at 6'2", 180 pounds. He fits a little bit more stature mold than what we've got currently on the lineup.
Sure. Let's go to Matt's. Let's see what he said.
Before I get roasted, before I get roasted in the comments on this one, I like just the preface on this one is, again, MLS proven goal scorer, somebody you know now if you planted on any other MLS team where he's the focal point of the offense, he is going to be a double-digit goal scorer.
Absolutely.
Something I do not feel super confident about saying about a Diego Rubio or an Andre Shinyashiki, and given Jared, all the rumblings that we've gotten about how little the actual budget is for a DP striker, this is a guy absolutely who I know right now the Colorado Rapids could afford. Maybe Ola Kamara, similar to Kai Kamara, is feeling like, oh, you're shopping me? You don't value me anymore, DC United? I'm still a good striker. This is a guy who would show up to Dick's Sporting Goods Park, be absolutely pissed off, roll into a squad of a whole bunch of other guys who are pissed off because they've been discounted previously, including possibly by people in the comments right now, who would be viable. I'm not saying this is a long-term solution. I'm not saying the Rapids are going to win MLS Cup with Ola Kamara, but if we need somebody to get us 7 goals between the season opener at LAFC and July, this is somebody who can do it. And for those reasons, that's why Ola Kamara is on my list.
2 months ago, I would have poo-pooed it, but today I get an update on my phone, Ola Kamara. I'm like, thank God, we got someone. Let's go.
Let's throw up mine there real quick. Yeah, real quick. Giassi Zardes, there was a report. There was maybe a rumor of a rumor, and at this point, I think anyone would be good. Zardes is obviously an accomplished MLS player, has had success at the national team level as well. Matt, you didn't seem so hot on it when I brought it up earlier.
I don't think that Columbus is ready to move on from him. Obviously, he's still a known quantity in Major League Soccer. I don't know that Barry, their backup, who they've been gradually trying to blood in, I don't know that they're ready for him to be the guy, and they haven't signed anybody. Columbus has become a bigger spender, so
and maybe this is a July move.
Yes, maybe this is a July move as Columbus is dropping big money to find a target for Lucas Estevez. Not Lucas Estevez. Who am I thinking of? Lucas Ella Rayan, the number 10 for Columbus as well. Again, just like just like Ola Kamara, I think Giassi Zardes being plopped into the Colorado Rapids absolutely would score 10 goals in this season. And I think he would show up like, oh, Columbus, like, you don't like me. Great locker room guy. He would fit in. He'd be a little bit pissed off and everything. He's absolutely a good human being. What he does off the field for the club is fantastic. Giassi Zardes would be a fantastic
Cultural,
add
perfect.
but similar, where I don't know necessarily that Kyle Larin is getting ready to come back to Major League Soccer. There's absolutely evidence out there that DC United's getting ready to move Ola Kamara. Ola Kamara wants another opportunity, and being in MLS would be another soft landing spot. Yeah. I'm being realistic and obviously slightly pessimistic in my bids here.
As an NBA guy, I am always pie in the sky. Get me that transaction. Get me that name. Let's win the headline.
Sign LeBron.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Messi to the Rapids.
You know, I say that kind of puts a pin in the 9 discussion for now. Obviously, this will be the discussion from now until July. Let's go ahead to our interview that super producer Yaya had with Robin Fraser, and it'll touch on a little bit on Omar. It'll touch a little bit on champions and just sort of where the team is at headed into the season.
The mood right now is let's get back to business. We feel like we have unfinished business based on last year. The environment in the stadium the day of the playoff game was absolutely fantastic. I've never seen our stadium look like that. And we actually played really quite well for most of the day. But to come out without a win just makes it a little bit of a bitter taste in our mouths. And we didn't have too long of an off season, but guys are definitely chomping at the bit to get going again and pick up where we left off. Well, I've been with a team that was within one penalty kick of winning Champions League, so I've been really, really close, and I know what the competition is like, so we're really, really looking forward to it. I know for the players, there is nothing quite like international competition, meaning your domestic league is important, and that's always going to be a priority to try to win an MLS Cup. But when you're in that moment, you have the ability to potentially go and do something special in CONCACAF. It's a huge thing, and we don't take it lightly, and we really want to have a good showing. I think they'll both do well, and I was just telling someone that one of my biggest goals in developing young players is teaching them how to think. And therefore, they'll be in any situation, they'll be prepared because they know how to assess what the opposition is doing and what the numbers look like. And in any given situation, I think it'll help their decision making. And at the highest level, that's the most important thing, is how quickly can you make the correct decision. And both guys grew a lot in the time that they were here, and I expect that they'll do quite well. Mohamed, he's a talented player. It is a bit of a jump from university to professional playing, and we'll just have to see how he adapts. He definitely has some attributes that are interesting, but he also has some things to learn as well. To be honest, you never know exactly how long players take to adapt, and some guys can fit in right away. For some, it's a process, and for a young player leaving his country for the first time, I think it's pretty unpredictable how quickly he'll assimilate. But what we do know is that he's very talented, he's very motivated, he seems to be a great kid in my discussions with him, and we're excited to have him come here and show us and show the fans what he can do. I feel like I answer this question the same every year, and what it is my expectations are that we continue to improve, and we've been doing that steadily over the years. The team's ability to adapt and adhere to principles that are being asked of them. The more they do that, the better we seem to do. And I just feel like if you look at last year, it was really about a group of guys really learning how to play and move together. And we got to where we did. Obviously, we feel like we fell really short based on how well we were playing. And I really just expect more of the same. At the end of the day, I really think that all of our players are still improving. And my big expectation is that we continue to improve. And if everyone is 2% better this year than they were last year, collectively, we're so much better.
All right, welcome back into DNVR Rapids. Guys, I mean, Robin seems confident going into the season, and specifically going into this matchup with Comunicaciones in the Champions League. Guys, I just want to plug, come on down to the DNVR bar for the first leg watch party. We will have it on. We will have the sound. It will be some soccer guys in here taking it in, and, hopefully you guys can come down and join us. Also, we did drop the crest that you see down there on the bottom third as a t-shirt. Make sure to hit that up, dnvrlocker.com. Go ahead, grab you one. I will send it to you as the head of merchandise, as the main shipper of t-shirts. Give me a little work to do in this slow season. Guys, touching really quick on the Comunicaciones matchup. Matt, give me one thing you really want to look out for in this first bit of action that we see this team with at all competitively in 2022.
Fitness. We saw them in their final preseason game that they had in Houston. Houston did basically a line change at halftime, and the Rapids were a little leggy by the time they got to the 60th minute. Obviously, they're training now back at altitude. That'll give them a little bit of a boost, and then they've got a preseason game tomorrow, Friday, in Orlando, presumably to get used to the humidity as well. We can see that kind of suck out the hydration and the energy from teams and everything. I don't know if the Rapids necessarily need a result in terms of they need a win. They are a superior team on talent to Comunicaciones. There is no player within their club who would maybe make it. I don't know if you knew this, Jared. Juan Luis Anangano, a former DP striker for Chicago Fire in 2014, is with Las Cremas. And so maybe just because hey, we need a DP striker. Here's a guy who scored 4 goals 1 year for Chicago. Maybe he fits in somehow. But other than that, there's no player from Comunicaciones who would fit in for the Rapids. And normally you think about going down to a Guatemala, to a Honduras to play Saprises, and this game just turns into basically a bar fight on a pitch and everything.
CONCACAF, typical, yeah.
And the Rapids are perfectly fit in to do the CONCACAF-iness. You come out with them with that and everything. Diego Rubio, Lal Sabubakar, Jack Price, they're going to get
big
stuck
guys.
in.
Yep.
And nobody's going to understand each other because people barely understand Jack Price when he's speaking English, to say nothing of, obviously, the Spanish speakers who would not be able to speak it.
Sure.
So I just want to see them. I want the effort and I want the energy level through 90 minutes to be up there, because that's the one thing from preseason I didn't see that normally I'm used to.
Jared, give me one thing you're looking out for.
Yeah, lineups. 9 months I spent last year trying to nail down what our lineup would be week after week. Still had no idea rolling right into that playoff match who we'd have on the field. So I think it'll be telling who we start, who we play, and very excited to see that CONCACAF bingo card fill up, because you've got very, very big potential for chaos, especially on the road match. So I hope that we can stay well within the tie. I'd love to see a win on the road, but if that's too much to ask for, a draw away, so we can do all the work here at home.
All right. I think that sets us up really well. Next week, we will be going into a little deeper into the matchup with Comunicaciones, so look out for that. I want to dive in, guys, to, I asked you guys and Yaya as well. We're going to make some predictions for the team. There's not a lot of odds yet up on DraftKings to bet on MVP or bet on really anything yet. But we're going to choose our own. We're going to say who's going to be the best blank for the Rapids this year. We're going to start with newcomer. Who will be the breakout who will be the best newcomer, best new addition to the team? Matt,
we'll start it off with Jared.
We'll start with Jared? Perfect. Jared, who do you have?
Yeah, newcomer this season, I've got Brian Acosta. We need this guy to help us anchor in that midfield. Some big shoes to fill with his fellow Acosta heading out. So hopefully Brian Acosta puts up some pretty good numbers for us.
Perfect. All right, Matt, let's throw Matt's up there real quick.
Max, huge striker, obviously, $1 million transfer fee for the midfielder. I will bite both of your arms off right now for 5 goals and 10 assists from this young man.
I think that's a safe. I mean, honestly, to me, it seems like the floor for Max would be maybe not the floor.
15 goal contribution is pretty significant.
Sure.
But
I think with the way he seems, athletically to fit in, he needs to replace Bassett. I think maybe 3 and 6 up range should be hopefully what we see. I mean, that's why you paid $1 million to go get him, right? Let's go ahead and throw mine up there. Abubakar Keita. I'm really excited about this addition, specifically because of Fraser being such a defensive-minded guy, being a successful MLS defender in his own right. Obviously, players ahead of him on the depth chart, but can he come in and fill those gaps? Can he come in the 70th minute and shore up a win? Do you guys have anything on that? What do you guys think?
I think if Keita's the newcomer of the year, then that absolutely means that there is no downgrade once Austin Trusty leaves, and I would welcome that.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, we're going to go to breakout player. So not necessarily the same as newcomer, although that can sort of be one and the same. Let's throw Jared's up there.
Yeah, guys, Estevez can scoot. This is a guy with some serious wheels. I was down on him a little bit last season in his appearances for in product. The crosses were a bit errant. I thought maybe a little bit lazy, but as he settles into the team, cleans up that distribution, I think we could be looking at a star that is equally as bright as the recently departed Sam Vines.
Man, and you look at those highlights from preseason already. I think those crosses are looking good. I think the ball's moving well. I think that, we all chose different ones, but I think this is a great candidate. Let's throw Matt's up on there.
Oliver Larraz. I'll admit a little bit of a bias here, ginger to ginger, obviously, but he's been when the first choice lineup has been starting in preseason. The first substitute at the midfield position has been Oliver Larraz. We've seen him work his way into that lineup in preseason. He's got all the tools to be a successful midfielder. More of an 8, more of a 6 than he is a number 10. But Brian Acosta, Mark Anthony Kaye could still be missing time due to international duty. Obviously, if he breaks out, absolutely. Then this is the best 5-deep midfield in the Western Conference.
Hard agree there from me. I don't think Jared's going to argue with you either. Let's throw mine up there. I said Alves because I don't think, coming from Brazil, coming from Flamengo, obviously we already talked about him as a newcomer, but outside of a couple YouTube highlight clips with the techno music, a lot of people don't know what he can bring. I mean, we don't even truly know what he can bring outside of those, but if he can contribute 10 plus goals, assists or goals, I think it would be the perfect way to get that $1 million spent.
A 10-goal contribution from Max. I think we're talking very, very glowingly about this signing and looking at one of Padraig's most magnificent moves. So,
all right, we're gonna go to your prediction for top goal scorer. Jared, throw yours up there.
I mean, it's kind of like just kind of picking the obvious to say Diego Rubio, right. But I don't know how many corners we're going to get, so we'll see. Diego Rubio, I think, will be a guy who is right around that 10 mark, and I think that might be the pace setter because, 8 was our leading goal scorer last year. If we can get Rubio to double digits, we probably had a pretty good season.
Let's throw Matt's up there.
Assuming, of course, the time machine and then convincing Prime Pele to come to the Rapids doesn't end up working out. I'll throw in Michael Barrios on this one, I think. And some of this is kind of me coupling some of my other picks as well. If Max Alves is the breakout player, I think he's dropping a lot of dimes. Who's one of those main people in transition he is dropping those dimes to? Michael Barrios.
Perfect. We'll throw mine up there real quick. Yeah, Lewis, who knows? We're going to throw stuff up there. We'll see if he can clean it up. Especially, with Galvan being out, can he go from super sub to main contributor? We'll see. We'll see. That's all I'll say. It's a we'll see. Also, who knows? Maybe top goal scorer isn't even on the roster yet. And obviously, Rapids Twitter /subreddit is jonesing for that one. So let's go ahead and we'll just go quick. Right to team MVP. Throw up Jared's right there. I think this is a great call. Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, what else needs to be said? You've got a guy who's a solid international, taking a team probably in first place to a World Cup with Canada. He's got every tool to be not only a goal scorer, but also a stalwart in the midfield. If Mark Anthony Kaye isn't the MVP of the team this year, I'd be very surprised.
All right, let's throw up Matt's there.
Jack Price, he's
Perfect.
The captain. He's the heart and soul of the team.
Absolutely.
Veteran leader and everything. Probably going to, again, lead the league in set-piece assists as well. I'll take it.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. And if that's the case, I think we had a really good year. Let's throw mine up there real quick. I said Yarbrough, man. Clean. He led the league last year in clean sheets. Can he do that again? Obviously, no chance of adding impact on the goals, but I think if we have a successful first half leading into that July window, it will be because he has continued his streak of clean sheets. Guys, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for coming into our first show here at DNVR Rapids. Very glad to have you. Watch along all season. Make sure to catch. You guys want to plug your shows real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So viewers, if you want to check me out at LWS Matt Pollard on Twitter, you can find my written content at lastwordonsports.com/soccer. And then, of course, the podcast, Holding the High Line. Search wherever your podcast options are. We may or may not be on Spotify this time next week. We're discussing that as well. And then you can follow the pod on Twitter at Rapids96Podcast.
Perfect. Jared?
You can find my takes at Jared_Giesler on Twitter, as well as the Centennial 38 podcast with Mr. Juan Fernandez.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much, guys. DNVR Rapids, you'll catch us every week. You'll see coverage from games, practices. You'll see members of the Rapids community like these two. Thank you so much, and up the Pids.